Hey guys, what's going on? It's a steaming pile of ship here, and in today's video we're going to be going over the brand new Tier 10 French cruiser, the Henri IV. I apologize if that's not quite the pronunciation, but I asked around a couple people I know who speak French at the university, and that was, I guess, my closest rendition of what they said. So Henri IV, something like that, means Henry IV. I'm going to call it the Henry for the rest of the video though, most likely, because it's a little easier for me to say, and you guys probably, well, if it is an incorrect pronunciation the first time, it's not doing me any good making it sound a little weird. Anyways, we are heading off towards A, and this ship is a really weird animal. A lot of people have been asking me how I compare it to, and I apologize for this horrible clipping here. But a lot of people have been asking me, what do you compare this ship to? And I honestly, I'm not quite 100% certain what I really would compare it to. On one hand, it's very similar to the Moskva. You've got a really long range. If you use the range mod, as I do, and you'll see why a little bit. But if you use the range module, you've got a 22.1 kilometer range, which is pretty dang good. You don't quite have Moskva shell arcs, not quite nearly as good as those, so it is a little bit harder to hit at the longer range, but overall it's not too bad. You're kind of like a Zhao in ways. You have, like I said, you have the Moskva layout of the ship, but you are a lot like a Zhao. You want to stay much further back in the ship than if you were in a Moskva. And that's because the armor isn't nearly, and I really mean this, the armor is not nearly as good on this ship as the Moskva armor. We're going to go ahead and pop our engine boost, which is very unique to this ship, similarly to how the Royal Navy cruisers get smoke and no other cruiser line gets smoke. This cruiser line gets the engine boost past, I want to say tier 6. As you see, we're spamming some HE onto this Amagi. This is one of the reasons I compare it to the Zhao. The HE isn't terrible. It's not as good, but it isn't terrible. It's got a pretty good fire chance. And we're just kind of kiting away from him. It's got a pretty good fire chance, the damage is alright, and it's, well, it feels okay. I guess that's how I'll put it. It doesn't feel quite as good as the Zhao, but it certainly is not bad. Like I say, the fire chance is pretty good. You already saw us start 2 fires on the Amagi, so I'm trying to get some more fires on him because he went and repaired them, and hopefully we'll start seeing some of those. And speak of the devil, there's one. See if we can't get another one burning. Now, you saw me fire torpedoes at him earlier. These torpedoes have a range of about 9 kilometers, I want to say. I fired them at him with the potential of, if he kept sailing in that direction, maybe he might hit him. I also knew that a destroyer was probably going to be capping A, so I was like, you know what, if he gets too close, maybe we'll get lucky and hit the destroyer too. But they definitely do not have the range to hit way out there as you see him right now. We are switching to this Bismarck. We've got the other guy burning, so let's start making this guy feel the pressure. Now, going back to comparing this to the Moskva, I like to compare this kind of as like a weird Zhao Moskva hybrid. You kind of have the sort of side profile of the Moskva where you're not the hardest ship to citadel, and yet you kind of have the lack of hugely thick armor as the Zhao, and that kind of basically is, you basically get the short end of the stick in the armor department. You don't have the troll armor of the Zhao, and you don't have the sheer tanky armor from the front of the Moskva. Instead of having the 50mm deck armor, you do have 30mm. That's really important right there, though, because one of the things that a lot of people who were testing this ship complained about is the fact that during testing she only had 25mm of armor on the, and you see how easily we just set that guy on fire again. But a lot of people were complaining that there was only 25mm of armor on the deck. And that was certainly taken note by Wargaming, and now we have a nice 30 millimeters of deck armor. Now you'll probably wonder why I'm using the range module on this ship when I could very easily be using the reload module. I mean, we have a 12-second reload. Why not drop that down a little bit? And the reasoning behind this, and just look how much we chunked that destroyer right there. The reasoning behind this is I've been trying a bunch of different loadouts with this ship. Right now, I'm kind of, I've not spec'd fully into concealment. And you'll start to see that terrible, worst of both worlds armor layout is starting to work against us. And this is why I haven't gone for the reload. You really need to stay as far away from the enemy as you can. This ship is not a ship that can very easily withstand being focused. And so that's why I've got the range module. Because at maximum range, when you're bum rushing around at about 42.2 knots, I believe, without the speed flag, and with engine boost active, as we have ours active, and you'll notice it's been active for 4.5 minutes, and it's only just now about to run out. Now this is with the module that increases duration, really useful on this ship. But essentially, if you're staying at the longest range that you possibly can, and you're going as fast as you can, as I do with this ship, you'll have a lot better results. Now our engine boost just died, and you'll know immediately, look at our little speed in the bottom left-hand corner. This turning really does a number, and not a good number, on our maneuverability, or our speed rather. It really cuts back on your ability to wiggle and maintain speed when you don't have that speed boost activated. I think it gives you something like 20% of your engine power, so when this thing goes down, or is on cooldown rather, you really gotta worry, and you should definitely be in an area where you're not going to need speed to survive nearly as long. And that's the main reason I go for range, is survivability. Like I say, this ship really can't stand being focused. We're getting away with a lot of stuff right now. We managed to burn down our second ship here, our second Bismarck class. The other ship we burned down was a Bismarck, and now we've burned down the sister Tirpitz, and we'll work away at the Amagi here. But this ship isn't something that you want to be focused in. Switch to AP here, but since he put that fire out, we might go ahead and, well, looks like we don't really need to now. I fired the torpedoes that way just in case he decides to turn in. I'm not really expecting him to, but who knows. Nobody else is in the way, so maybe we'll get something. And going back to those torpedoes, I mentioned they have a 9-kilometer range earlier. And that's about the only really good thing they have going for them. They're not terribly slow. So that's kind of nice, but they're also not fast. But the main real issue with them, as we try and dodge these Benson torps rather easily, and we're going to turn back in so we don't need any more. But the main problem with the torpedoes on the ship is that you only launch 3 at a time from each side. And that wouldn't be really an issue if you did a ton of damage with them. You know, I could see them being fairly well balanced if they did a lot of damage. You know, it really meant something. We just had a Shimakaze pop up, so we're dodging his torps and this Benson's torps, killing the Benson, and now the Shimakaze's run aground. But because the torpedoes really don't do a heck of a lot of damage, and there was a nice nearly 7,000 damage hit on that guy. But again, speaking of the damage of the torpedoes, if they did more damage, I could see having a smaller quantity of them viable for game balancing. However, because they don't really do a lot of damage, they reload really slowly. I think I don't know, I don't think it is as long as the Kutuzov. I always remember the Kutuzov, it took a long time to reload those torpedoes. I don't remember it being as long as on those. We'll have to check in port what the actual figure is, but they definitely are not quick to come back. So, right. So you've got these torpedoes that don't do a lot of damage. You don't have a lot of them. They're not particularly fast. You don't have a lot that you launch at one given point in time. And so they really leave you with not much to work with if you have to YOLO rush somebody. And here we have some carrier. It's another thing this ship really doesn't do that great with, and I believe Wargaming has announced that they are going to look into this, but the AA on the ship is pretty bad. I'm pretty sure it's even worse than the Zhao's. We'll have to compare it again in port. If I remember, I'll try and do that. So, gotta remember, AA and also the torpedo reload time. But Wargaming, I think, said that they're going to look at the Henry's AA, so it right now is currently bad, but I'm not quite sure what that will change to. We're going to go full broadside here because I want to try and kill this guy before he goes around the island there. Unfortunately, though, I see some torpedo bombers coming in, so we're going to activate defensive fire, and then we need to turn in big time. Now, I believe in this replay I'm running, and I think I'm still running with it, but we'll have to check. But I believe I'm running with the rudder shift mod, the one that takes the spot of concealment. I think it's like rudder shift mod 3. And the kind of idea is I don't really plan on being concealed too much in this ship. I just plan on using my maximum range and extremely fast straight line speed to be able to discourage enemies from going after me. And this works sometimes really well, and sometimes it doesn't work. I was trying to arc these shells over the island, but unfortunately it is not going to happen. But my idea here is I don't really care as much that I'm spotted. It's similar to a Khabarovsk in gameplay in this regard, because it's like, well, I know I'm probably going to be where I will be spotted if I'm firing the guns, so you know what? May as well make the most of it and have a little bit more wiggle room. And it seems to be working fairly well. I do have the games where I notice, and I don't want to give too much broadside of this Baltimore here, but I do have those games where I notice the stealth not being present. But overall, I think the advantages of having the increased maneuverability at long range is a little bit nicer than having the better stealth. At least for my gameplay. Again, I stay at maximum range, so, you know. I was not paying attention here. So we're going to have to repair that. And this guy, he's probably going to go for the ram if I don't torp him here, so this is one situation where the torpedoes are just enough to get the job done, but if that was a battleship, he would have had me. And you see, I just get citadeled right there, and I was giving him a decent angle, but he hit my engine, which is kind of curious. It's also kind of annoying because we're about to spot this Essex here, and I'm just going to have to coast forward here so that I can try and get a few more shots on him until I'm able to either repair the engine or it repairs itself. We're pretty weak though, and you saw right there that you don't really have a lot of brawling potential. Again, you kind of get the worst of both worlds in terms of armor when you compare this ship to the Zhao and the Moskva. You get pretty much the worst stats of both. So you have the Moskva's fairly easy to citadel broadside, and there's a nice big chunk right there. We'll see if we can nick him with these shells. And speaking of a Moskva, we might have another Moskva's broadside up here. But you really do lose out on the armor, and that's one reason why brawling in the ship, you really have to know when and where to do it in order to make it count. And that kind of makes it really difficult to carry, which I've had a lot of issues with that, where I'll be one of the last people alive, and then because, you know, there's not much you can do at that point, I just get weathered down fairly quickly. We'll go ahead and try and bring back some of the health right there. And you'll notice I do have a lot lower health, and I have chosen Adrenaline Rush in this ship. And so let's see what my reload ends up being whenever we start taking some more shots. But this is certainly a ship that Adrenaline Rush is very, very helpful on, due to the fact that you have such a long reload. Again, If you use the range like I do, it's like a 12-second reload. I think with the reload module, it is what, 19.6 kilometer range, which isn't terrible. It's pretty good. I mean, for a base range on a cruiser, that's great. But I don't know. To me, I'd rather have the range and a little bit longer reload. That way, I can keep firing for longer into a match. And now that I was talking about that reload, I actually forgot to see how long it took to reload with IFA, excuse me. So it looks like about 10 seconds now. But I forgot to actually count earlier how long the reload was, now that Adrenaline Rush is kicked in. Let's see, one more time for sure. Come on. Right side. Yeah, about 10 seconds or so. And so you can see that you're able to get the reload a little bit down there, but ultimately this ship really does not have a lot of carry potential because it simply just doesn't have the DPM, doesn't have the armor, doesn't have the YOLO capacity like a Hindenburg, or even a Zhao really, because a Zhao, yeah, the torps aim backwards, but with the troll armor there's always that one little chance that maybe they'll aim just off enough that your armor will kind of be like, haha. This ship, though, there's not really a lot of room for error in terms of citadeling this thing. So, yeah. The game is about over, though. We are about to take this Moskva out. And this is the best game I've had in the ship. It's also one of the only games that I've done nearly this well in the ship. And burned that guy down right as the other guy gets the kill. So a pretty good result, if I do say so myself. 220,000 damage, 6 enemies sunk, 19 fires set, 3 citadels hit, 2 solo caps. One thing I do want to point out, we only shot down 1 plane, and you saw, I think, 2 or 3 different squadrons went after me. So that does point out, right now the AA is pretty trash, because I had defensive fire for one of those as well. So yeah, your AA, not really the best. Again, I think Wargaming is looking into buffing that, and I really think they should, because the ship, I don't think this ship is quite where it needs to be yet, but this would certainly be going in the right direction. Moving on, we were top of the team with excuse me, 3,019 base experience, and a nice little trio here with the Confederate, Kraken Unleashed, and High Caliber awards. And a detailed damage breakdown, 150,000 damage from the main battery unit. HE shells did about 86,000, and 64,000 damage came from the armor piercing. So a nice, not quite even split, but definitely close. You can see where, knowing when to use the right types of ammo certainly comes and does a lot for you. Torpedoes, 11,000. Secondary battery, well, it's a cruiser, so we don't really care, but 300 if you wanted to know. And we nearly got the Witherer with fires doing about 58,000 damage, so getting pretty close there, but not quite. And then I'm running the permanent camouflage, which I'll show you back in port. And I've also got my military month contributor, so we got some nice little rewards with the silver. 571,000 was the take home, and in the terms of experience, we got 9,200 ship experience and just under 500 experience, free experience, I should say. So now that we're back in port, before we go over the build, I want to say thank you, Wargaming. I didn't know I needed this in my life, but now that I've got this dry dock, I hope it never leaves. This looks beautiful, and I love being able to see parts of the ship that you wouldn't necessarily be able to see if you didn't have the dry dock port. So for you guys without premium, I really feel sorry for you. This is a beautiful port here. And also check out this little glitch I found. You gotta set it real quick, but look at I don't know if you caught that, but you see that those were the screws were still turning. We'll try it again real quick with the Moskva. Yeah, see them? You can see them right through there. They're still turning. But anyways, before we go into any of the build or anything like that, I think I was mentioning how the torpedoes seem to reload kind of slowly, but not as quite as slowly as the Kutuzov. Kutuzov has a 131-second reload time on the torpedoes, and the Henry has 90 seconds, so it is quicker. So that is handy. I remember it just felt like these things on the Kutuzov reloaded like glaciers, you know, like they're trying to push a glacier in there. Yeah, and that's the wrong cruiser. But I did want to compare the AA with that of the ZOW, and we'll go ahead and close off torpedoes there and open up the AA defenses. And the ZOW, 36 damage on these 3.1s, 67 on these 3.1s, 99 on these 3.5s, and on these 5 kilometer ones, I'm not quite sure if I have AFT on this ship yet either. We have 125, so it's not quite the range of the Henry, but let me check real quick. I don't have AFT on this, and actually, I may not even have. Oh yeah, okay, we'll fix that. Boom. We're going to sell that. But yeah, you're starting to see that the AA on the ZOW is almost the same range as that on the Henry, and yet the Henry's AA is much worse in terms of actual damage output. On these sort of mid-range 4.2 kilometer AA guns, you only get 97 damage, and the only other AA gun you have is a 6.2 kilometer gun that does 94. Let's check the numbers on how many. So it's 8x2 and 6x2. 6x2 on these, and 9.2 on these. So, and of course you have these little ones here. So I would say that the AA is probably better on the ZOW than on the Henry, and even this right here, the little bar says it is, and that really does tell you something, that if you're envious of ZOW's AA on a tier 10 cruiser, there might be a little bit of a problem. Anyways, however, let's start going over the ship now that we've gone over that and my build. You're going to want all the premium consumables that are possible. These are all going to help you survive longer, and in a ship that does take damage as easily as the Henry, because of its large size and yet fairly thin armor, you certainly want all the help to survivability you can get. So you're going to want the damage control party 2, then you're going to want the repair party 2, engine boost 2, and finally defensive AA 2. If you had to prioritize, put them in that order. They'll really help you out. In the upgrades, this is where I'm kind of different than most of my other cruisers, but we'll start off similar. Main Armaments Modification 1 is going to be the first upgrade, and that's going to help keep your nice little torpedo tubes here, as well as your turrets, a little bit, you know, safer, I guess, from enemy fire. AA Guns Mod 2, again, your AA is pretty pitiful. You at least want a little more range, that way you have a little bit more time to damage enemy planes. But overall, you saw, we only shot down that one plane. They're not really doing anything right now, so again, hopefully Wargaming buffs them. Here's where you can start to vary from what I've got. I've tried Main Battery Mod 3. I like it, but then I also like the range, and to me, this ship really needs range a little bit more than the extra 2 seconds, or the 2 seconds quicker reload with Main Battery Mod 3. So I use the Gunfire Control System Mod 2. You might find it more to your liking with Main Battery Mod 3, and by all means go for it, but for me, this is what's worked better. In the 4th slot, if you have Engine Boost Modification 1, this is where you want it. Put it right here. It gives you literally like 4.5 minutes worth of engine boost consumable duration. So let's see, 270 seconds. Yeah, that's about what, 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes, something like that. So quite a long time. And let's see the cooldown on that too, actually, while we're at it. 90-second cooldown. So, and that's the premium one, but ridiculously fast cooldown and a lot of uptime with that module. So nice. If you do not run Concealment Module in slot 6, I recommend running Propulsion Module 2 in slot 5 instead of Steering Gears Mod 2, and as you see, I have Steering Gears Mod 3 instead of Concealment System Mod 1. If you want a little more traditional roll, get Concealment Systems Mod 1 and then your little steering gears here, but for me, bum rushing at the very outskirts of the map at 42.5 knots, I don't know. I don't really think I need concealment if I'm blazing away from that far away. A lot of people probably aren't going to take the shots at me anyways, and since I really don't want to get close to anybody, I don't need the concealment to be as good. 14.1 right now. Let's compare that with Moskva here. You'll see I am mounting concealment mod 1 on the Moskva, and it's only 13.8, so it's very, very similar, although again, Moskva, much better armor. So, you win some, you lose some there. But anyways, let's go over the captain really quick, and then I'll give you my final verdict on it. In the first row, you want your priority target, and then in the sort of order of priority, I would go for Adrenaline Rush, and if you're grinding the captain out for the whole line, I'd go for Demolition Expert first because it'll help you the entire grind. If you just have this for the Henry, go ahead and get Superintendent first. After you get whatever one of these you want first, go ahead and get Concealment Expert. Get whichever one you did not pick up first in the third row, and then I would recommend after that Expert Marksman. Not quite sure what I'll do. I've got 2 skills that I haven't put anywhere, and then another 2 skills that I need to unlock. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with that. I've actually heard that it might be worthwhile using IFHE, although I'm going to let the people who know a little bit more about the game and how that works give me kind of a final verdict before I put that on my ship, because I mean, we did okay with HE, and is it worth nerfing our fire chance? I mean, maybe it's nicer to have Vigilance or Jack of all trades, for instance, there. So I'm going to be experimenting when I find out, but yeah, for now, this is what I'm running with. Again, one last thing I should add, AFT, not really a huge thing. If they buff the AA, might be worth it, but right now, I'm not bothering. Anyways, the final verdict for me on this ship, I think, has to be that it's not the best ship, and I certainly won't defend it as the best ship, but it's fun. I have fun with the Krispy Kreme, not really related to this ship at all in any other way except that a lot of people really underestimate the Krispy Kreme, and I kind of see it as a challenge, and I think that's what I really like about the Henri IV. It's challenging to play it properly, and I really want to get that sort of knowledge, you know, whatever little thing I need to click, I want that for the Henri IV here, because I mean, I had a great game there, kind of few and far in between so far, but if I can start to learn how to make this ship really work, it's going to be fun, but it's certainly not a ship that I would recommend for beginners, and I honestly wouldn't really prioritize grinding the ship out. You know, maybe you've got another cruiser line that you're up to tier 8 or tier 7. Maybe you finish that one out first, see if they buff the ship, make it a little bit better, and go and see what other people are saying about it then. But I wouldn't necessarily prioritize grinding the ship, but at the same time, it's not a ship that I wouldn't recommend. I hope that kind of helps a little bit. But anyways, this video is probably getting pretty long, so we'll go ahead and cut it off here. This is a steaming pile of ships signing off. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you all for watching. Peace out.